Hello everyone, Just Podcast TV is here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified on new contents.
Episode 396, Auction Time. The originally lively auction hall fell into complete silence after Zach's bid. Everyone turned their heads, wanting to see who was so crazy. Holland also turned his head, although he could tell that the voice was somewhat familiar. He couldn't even believe it. When he turned his head around with everyone else, he realized that the person who had raised the bid was Zach, who was sitting on the cold bench. Everyone thought that Zach might have gone crazy. They were still thinking of taking advantage of him. Some people even thought that the starting bid would be $18 million. Some people thought that the base price was $20 million. However, where did such a person pop out from to shout a bid of $50 million? Was he crazy? He looked at Zach. Holland was furious. He didn't even dare to raise the price anymore. This had far exceeded his limit, not to mention the people present. Even the auctioneer on the stage was stunned. He could not understand it at all. Thus, he tried to ask, "Mister, are you sure you're serious?" Zach sat on the stool and replied, "This doesn't seem to be what you should ask, right? Shouldn't you ask 50 million once, 50 million twice, and then strike a deal?" The auctioneer was embarrassed and speechless. But what he said just now was a little too much. Zach naturally had his reasons for daring to shout. He did not even have the right to ask, and his only qualification was to ask and strike the hammer. Thus, in the next moment, the auctioneer forced a smile and asked everyone present, "Does anyone else want to increase the bid? 50 million going once." Silence. Silence. No one dared to speak. This price was too damn fierce. 50 million going twice? Originally, Holland was determined to win the auction of Honey Hospital. But now he really doesn't dare to speak anymore. It was $50 million, not 5,000. When he thought of Zach's detestable look, he felt hatred in his heart. It was not that he did not expect Zach to only install a wall and not be able to take out the money, but the possibility of this was really not very high. In the past, when he didn't have money, he might have looked forward to it this way. But now, he was rich and had come into contact with many people who were richer than him. Therefore, he believed that 50 million was nothing in the eyes of a real rich person. He could even take out the money himself, but it was not that easy. Moreover, in his eyes, this price was far beyond his value. Therefore, in the midst of the angry and unhappy silence, the auctioneer finally dropped the hammer. "Deal!" Zach stood up and casually touched a stool. When he passed by the staff, he smiled and said, "You see, I told you that it won't be long before the stool is warm." The staff member's face was full of shock, and he had yet to recover from it. This auction could be said to be the shortest auction in the history of their company. It ended in less than 5 minutes. When he thought about how he arranged for a super rich person to sit on a stool, he felt some lingering fear. What if this super rich person was unhappy about the stool at that time? If he was targeted at him, then his job would be finished. Zach whistled and put his hands in his pockets. He came to Holland and looked at Holland, who was sitting on the stool with a smile on his face. "Holland, didn't you just shout at me downstairs that you want to rely on your strength at the auction? Where did your ability go? Did it all go to the toilet last night? Or does your strength only exist in that mouth of yours?" Holland was very angry. When has he ever been ridiculed like this? He was so angry that he wished he could hit someone. However, he didn't dare. It wasn't just the environment that didn't allow it. Even his bodyguard was beaten to the ground and couldn't get back up. It was also destined that he didn't dare to do anything reckless. Suppressing his anger, Holland said, "Opening a hospital isn't something that can be done with money. Even if you capture the Honey Hospital, the Cunningham Medical Group will eat you sooner or later and make you part of the Cunningham Medical Group." Zach clicked his tongue and asked, with all the crap that comes out of your mouth, I'd start to wonder if I were at an auction or at a cattle farm. Zach's mockery caused the surrounding people to burst into laughter, although they didn't manage to capture it, seeing Holland, who was supposed to be the biggest competitor, make a fool of himself. Their trip today wasn't in vain. The laughter that came to watch the show made Holland's face turn dark with anger, especially when he saw Zach whistling and leaving complacently. He hated him even more. His right hand tightly grabbed the beautiful secretary's thigh, pinching her so hard that she begged for mercy in a low voice. "Boss, don't pinch me anymore. It hurts. It really hurts." But Holland didn't care at all. He pinched her more and more like a pervert, making the beautiful secretary unable to bear the pain. She remembered the time when Zach flirted with her. She thought about how rich Zach was and how young and handsome he was. Therefore, the beautiful secretary did not know where she got her courage from. She stretched out her hand and gave Holland a loud slap. Holland was stunned. What did this mean? Pervert! The beautiful secretary ran towards Zach with tears in her eyes. When everyone saw this, they immediately understood. It was Holland bullying the little beauty. She was crying from the bullying. If he couldn't win the auction, he would bully his own secretary? What a great ability. Everyone looked at Holland with disdain, which made Holland even more annoyed. He had never thought that a female secretary who was usually bullied and played whatever he wanted would actually dare to fight back. She even slapped him in public, which made him feel embarrassed. However, what Holland did not expect was that she was still behind him. The beautiful secretary chased after Zach with tears in her eyes. The next moment, she hugged Zach's arm tightly and held him in front of her. "Sir, please can you kindly help me and arrange a new job for me? I really can't stand that abnormal Holland. He's simply not a human. He's always taking the opportunity to play hooligan. I don't want to work by his side anymore." Staring at the beauty of the beautiful secretary for a second, Zach smiled and said in a low voice, "You have a lot of thoughts. You know that I don't get along with Holland, so you deliberately said that. You deliberately took the opportunity to slap his face in front of me so I can give you a job?" The beautiful secretary was slightly stunned. She felt that Zach was just a young man, so he wouldn't think so much. But she did not think that her little thoughts were all seen through by Zach. But even though he saw through her, she still needed a chance to slap her boss in the face. Holland was so angry that he wanted to smash the couplet sofa. Not only did he fail to win the auction, but his secretary was also taken away by someone else. Furthermore, it was the secretary who personally dumped him in front of everyone. At this moment, Holland was garnishing his teeth in anger. His nails were digging into the flesh of his fingers. "No matter who you are, I will make you regret what you did today!" Episode 397. I'm used to it. After returning to the carriage, Donnie was delighted. "Boss, what's wrong with you? Why did you bring Fallon into the car when you got out of the car? And why did you bring a beautiful woman from the auction?" Zach chuckled. Just as he was about to reply, the beautiful secretary spoke first, and her tone was unfriendly. "You can just be a bodyguard and do your job well. What's the point of talking?" Donnie sneered and did not say anything. Zach also smiled and didn't say anything. After that, the beautiful secretary sat beside him and said, "Boss, you have to protect me well into the future. Holland is very fierce. What if he takes revenge on me again?" Zach waved his hand. "Don't worry, he won't. I will arrange for my family to come and pick you up right now." When she heard about his family, the beautiful secretary was instantly overjoyed. Was he going to bring her home? If he could casually fork out $50 million to bid for it, how rich would his family be? The beautiful secretary couldn't help but fantasize that when she went to a luxury store in the future, she would just point at 7 or 8 bags inside the store and say, "I can't decide, so I think I'll just have it all." While the beautiful secretary was daydreaming, Zach called the director of the Dream Group's public relations department. "Zanya, yes, I have a beautiful woman here. She is very smart and in need of some help. Arrange for someone to pick her up at the airport." When the beautiful secretary heard this, she felt a little embarrassed. Who would praise someone in front of them? However, she was still quite happy in her heart. She thought that this rich man was probably obsessed with her and couldn't run away. After the car returned to the hotel, Zach instructed Donnie, "Make sure you personally send her onto the plane and ensure her safety. Understood?" How could Donnie not understand what Zach meant? He immediately replied, "Don't worry, boss. I understand." Zach got out of the car. Even though the beautiful secretary was reluctant to part with him, she was still excitedly ordering Donnie to send her to the airport. "You can't delay my flight. Let me tell you, I will be your lady boss from now on. If you try to please me, I might even give you an extra $350,000. Donnie sneered in his heart. Even he had tens of millions of dollars. This woman was stingy if she actually gave him $350,000. After sending the beautiful secretary onto the plane, Donnie sat in the car and smoked. He sent Zanya the landing time of the plane. When Donnie returned to the hotel, Zach and Fallon were sitting in the corner of the lobby, drinking tea and discussing matters. "Fallon, I will leave the medical staff in the hospital to you. You have some prestige in this circle. But the most important thing is that the medical ethics of the medical staff we recruit must be the most important. You must not be careless about this." Fallon nodded solemnly. "Don't worry about this. One should learn from one's mistakes. I won't make the same mistakes again." That was true. It was previously because Fallon had suffered losses before. Therefore, Zach felt that Fallon would definitely not be careless in this aspect. "There is one more thing. I have already transferred a qualified business management staff from the group headquarters. It's true that we're a welfare hospital, but we can't let down our business management. Just like you said to me that day, we can't keep paying for it. That's why you're in charge of the medical management and the like. Leave the business management to the insiders." After Zach praised this point, Fallon immediately nodded without any objections. He felt that this was something that should be done. Otherwise, no matter how much money Zach had, he would not be able to withstand the free medical treatment. After Fallon agreed, Zach took out his phone and called Larry. "Larry, where is the person I asked you to arrange? Where is he?" "He has already passed. He just called Thomas and said that he is about to arrive at the train station." Thomas! The name Larry mentioned made Zach recall the memories of last year. At that time, he used Thomas to trick Nathan and the Drenley family. He had stayed abroad for a year. Now that the Drenley family was finished, it was time for him to come back. "All right, I have to use my talents now. I can't always be idle." Zach immediately agreed with Larry's suggestion. After telling Larry about the hotel he stayed in, Zach ended the call and continued to talk about the hospital with Fallon. About half an hour later, Thomas appeared in the lobby of the hotel. He walked quickly to Zach and said, "Chairman." Zach looked at Thomas and said, "A long time no see." Thomas looked at Zach with eyes full of joy, because he had returned. The chairman was ready to put him in an important position. At the same time, he was also shocked by Zach's current achievements. First was the movie, then the car. It was quite impressive. This was not something that could be settled with money and connections. After all, there were real things here. After gesturing for Thomas to take a seat, Zach took out a cigarette and prepared to light one. However, he suddenly remembered that Thomas did not smoke, so he smiled and stuffed the cigarette back into the cigarette box. "I forgot you don't smoke. Sorry." The chairman, being so polite, made Thomas somewhat fearful. "It's all right, Chairman. I'm used to it." Larry was also a good chimney. Thomas was used to being a secretary. Zach smiled and did not smoke. He just introduced Thomas and Fallon to each other. "Thomas, Larry said last year that you are very intelligent and you are a person worth worrying about. So I believe Fallon and I can trust you." I'll leave the business management and development of this hospital to you. Do your best, and don't let Fallon down." Thomas was just about to promise something when Zach waved his hand to signal him not to say anything. "Also, this honey hospital is just the beginning of development. If you can find a successful business model, then we will set up a chain of medical treatment in the future. And we can even do the upper and lower parts of the medical equipment. You don't have to worry about investing. As long as you have a detailed plan and future, I will invest as much money as you need. As long as you can let me see the development and profits, you can do whatever you want." Zach's trust made Thomas feel moved and excited. He was moved by the importance of his ability, but he was also excited because he finally had the chance to show off his skills. He had learned a lot from Larry, and now he finally had a use for it. So he said solemnly, "Chairman, don't worry. I will do a good job in this medical field. I will make the public service and the business progress parallel to let the public benefit and move forward parallel to the business." This was the result Zach wanted. He stretched out his hand and shook Thomas's hand tightly. There was no need to say anything else. As a qualified boss, it was impossible for him to do everything by himself. To be able to choose the right person to do the right thing was a success. At this moment, Thomas was also very happy. He had made the right decision to follow Zach back then. As long as he did this well, Thomas's name would definitely be as famous as Lance, Jessica, and Carson in the future. He would become in charge of the Dream Group's medical industry. Episode 398. Accidents After Incidents. After a few more errands, they went to the hospital after lunch. Zach's acquisition of the Honey Hospital was not just for the benefit of the public. There was also another important matter, which was to investigate the information. His father had performed a liver transplant surgery in the hospital. However, Fallon did not remember this clearly. He could remember that someone had a liver transplant surgery, and that person had an extraordinary temperament. He talked elegantly and looked rather official. It was precisely because of this that he did not ask too much, because it concerned the patient's privacy. This also caused it to be very difficult for him to remember the information related to this person, so he could only accompany Zach to the hospital's database to investigate. After Donnie drove to the hospital, Zach and Fallon came to the database together. However, they had not completed the handover. The seal was still there, and the lock was not removed. Regarding this, Donnie's suggestion was to use the fire axe to solve the problem. However, Zach stopped him. "There's no need to rush this day. We'll come back to investigate after the handover." It was easy to use the axe. If someone did not let go of this point, the database would be sealed for a few more days. Although it was not a big problem, Zach did not want to wait too long. Just as he was about to go upstairs, his phone rang. He picked up the phone and saw that it was Jessica calling. Walking to the lobby, Zach picked up the phone and said with a smile, "Jess, what is it?" Jessica's tone was quite anxious. "The new movie that we are filming with Lance is one that Sander is writing and directing. It is stuck when we report it." Zach frowned. He had seen the script that Sander had made earlier. It was not bad, and it was not a problem. Why would it be stuck when reporting it? Zach was about to ask what the problem was when his phone vibrated. He took a look and saw a new phone call. It was Carson. Zach rejected the call and continued to ask what happened to Jessica. The reason was whether it was on his side or on the other side. Jessica replied, "We have done 3 self-checks here. I have personally read the script. There are no problems at all." The meaning was very obvious. The problem did not lie with them, but with the file department. Zach was about to say something when his phone vibrated again. He looked up at the screen. It was still Carson. He had just hung up and called again. Something must have happened to Carson. "Jess, I won't tell you for now. Carson seems to have an urgent matter. I will call you later." After ending the call with Jessica, Zach picked up on Carson's call. "Director Marquez, there's a problem with Windchaser's car. The Quality Inspection Bureau asked us to stop production, but it is only limited to the production of QZ. The other factory's production is not affected, but the other factories have nothing to do with us. Zach was stunned. What happened? Why did the two parties come together? Did they form a group? Zach then asked the specific reason, and Carson also gave a specific explanation over the phone. We have a car owner named Harlow. He drove out on the 24th of last month. There was a car accident on the way and killed 3 people. Harlow also died in the car accident. The family of 3 who died, well, they sued Harlow's family. Harlow's family sued us, thinking that the car accident was caused by the malfunction of our brakes. In fact, according to the Public Security Department's assessment, our brake system was malfunctioning, and it was precisely because of this that the accident happened. Carson also said a lot. Zach's attention was completely caught by the fact that the braking system was malfunctioning. This was impossible. Zach didn't think that someone as serious as Walker would make such a serious mistake in quality control. When he asked Carson, Carson told him that he had already asked Walker. There was no problem with the safety check when the vehicle was out of the factory. There was no chance of malfunction at all. Moreover, this matter existed very independently. The after-sales feedback from all the car shops in the country did not go into the car shop because of the brake system malfunctioning. After hanging up the phone, Zach frowned. 2 companies had exploded at the same time. Could this be a coincidence? Zach felt that this was not a coincidence, so he called the old fox. He did not ask for help from the old fox. He wasn't that cowardly. He just wanted to know if there was any movement from the Mann family recently. Has Holden been released again? However, the old fox's response was very clear. The Mann family had been rather peaceful recently, and nothing else had happened. This was truly a strange thing. Zach had always felt that it was as if someone was deliberately targeting him. After that, he received a call from Kate. This call just now. He had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Kate's voice was very urgent after he answered the phone. Hubby, someone is using large amounts of money to attack our company. But don't worry, Lewis is already pushing it up. But Lewis told me to tell you that he needs to use large amounts of funds. A large amount of money. How large was it? When Zach asked, Kate replied, at least 80 billion. Zach was stunned. Lewis needed 80 billion to resist, which meant that Lewis had used at least 100 billion to fight. Dream Group only had a total of 10 billion worth of assets. What was Lewis trying to do by using 10 times that amount? Movies, cars, and corporations were all attacked at the same time. If this was a coincidence, this was too much of a coincidence. Zach injected $120 billion in capital into the company. After all, Lewis had to fight the oncoming attack. The use of this huge sum of money immediately alerted the old fox, and he called to inquire. He knew that Zach was not a prodigal, and when he thought about the film and company incident that Zach had mentioned, the old fox also realized that Zach had been attacked by a commercial organization. After asking on the phone, the old fox reminded him, "Pay attention to the financial order!" Zach suddenly realized something. "Thank you, Grandpa." After hanging up the phone, Zach quickly called Lewis. "Lewis, defend. Don't fight back. Pay attention to the financial order." Episode 399. I'm Not Free. Lewis was originally in control of $120 billion and was excitedly preparing for a big fight. However, he calmed down after Zach's reminder. When the two sides had over $200 billion in the capital market, there would definitely be intense sparks. Then, it would affect many innocent financial enterprises. This did not seem to have anything to do with the two of them fighting, but it would cause chaos in the financial market. Therefore, they had to be careful about this matter. They could not let Lewis make any excessive counter-killing moves. Perhaps the other party knew about the existence of a super awesome person like Lewis, which was why they deliberately brought heavy funds into the market to kill him. They were trying to provoke him. As a king, not only did Lewis need to defend himself, He only needed to fight back in order to protect his dignity as a king. However, his counterattack had caused a huge commotion. To put it bluntly, the opponent was digging a pit to lure Dream Group to fight back. The film industry had been investigated. The automotive industry had been investigated. And now even the company's headquarters had suffered financial sniping. What a good method. An ordinary person would not do such a thing without reason. Zack lit up a cigarette, his thoughts flying in the green fog. Not long after, he sorted out his thoughts and took out his phone to call Jessica. Jessica, you should discuss with Lance about the film and television. Removing the ban on movies is one aspect. You must find out who is behind this and drag this person out. Jessica was one of the upper echelons of Dream Group, so she naturally had other channels to understand the current problem that Dream Group was facing. All right, don't worry. You can go and handle other matters. Lance and I will work together to deal with this matter. After the film industry was handed over to Jessica, Zack called Lewis. Lewis, just defend. It doesn't matter if you catch a few of them, but you know what the bottom line is. I won't say much. I will leave the matters of the company's headquarters to you. Also, tell Larry to be careful of the other businesses. After instructing Lewis, Zack called Carson again. Go and investigate everything related to Harlow, the owner of the car. I will probably come to your place at night. After instructing Carson, Zack waved at Thomas in the distance. After Thomas came to his side, Zack said to him, I have something urgent to deal with. I will sign an electric authorization for you on the way. I will transfer the ownership of Honey Hospital to you. You will handle the connection with the auction company and the unsealing of the hospital. The plan is the same. You don't need to report the remaining details to me. You just need to make the decision. Larry was able to recommend you to me because he trusted you. I am also willing to give you my trust. Don't disappoint me. Thomas didn't know what had happened to Zack, but he could tell that it was urgent. So he nodded his head solemnly. Don't worry, Chairman. I will not let you down. Zack patted his shoulder, then beckoned Donnie to come. Let's go. Zack nodded at Fallon from a distance and walked out of the hospital. Before he left the hall, Zack met Fallon's daughter, Sandra, and walked into the hall. Chairman, I have something to discuss with you. I'm busy. Zack did not even have the time to look at Sandra. He walked around her and walked out of the hospital. When there was nothing else, he did not mind chatting with Sandra. But now, it was not just a matter of business. It was also a big matter. This clearly showed that someone was giving special care to the Dream Group. In the next three aspects, the most chaotic one was the Wind Chaser. The impact of this incident was huge. Not only did it affect the brand of the Wind Chaser, but it also affected the foreign market. In a sense, this attack was not the work of a big family. If two car companies joined hands, this situation could be caused. Therefore, Zack had no way of determining who did it. Furthermore, what he needed to do now was not to find out who had done it. He had to solve the problem first. Wind Chaser must not be defeated. Absolutely not. Sandra looked at Zack's hurried figure and felt a little disappointed in her heart. At this time, Thomas saw Sandra, and his eyes lit up. The relationship between Fallon and Sandra made him feel an opportunity to please this beauty. So he walked forward and generously introduced himself. Hello, I am Thomas. Sandra did not even look at him. Dad, I will go back first. After greeting Fallon, Sandra turned around and left. Seeing that he was ignored, Thomas was speechless. He felt that he had failed. The car sped along. Zack and Donnie alternated between driving. In the end, they felt the flag company around 9 o'clock at night. They had already contacted each other on the way there and met in the office of Mac of the Flagstaff Group. So when Zack arrived at the office, Mac, Luna, Carson, and Walker were all there. Episode 400. It's not easy to be a boss. He didn't have any free time at all. Since this matter hadn't caused a huge disturbance on the internet, Zack had to calm down as soon as possible. After arriving, Zack asked Walker to immediately analyze the possibility of the car braking system making a mistake. Walker said a bunch of professional terms. Zach waved his hand and said, "I don't want the process. I want the final result." Walker closed the document and said, "I promise wholeheartedly that there is not a problem with the brake system." His meaning was very clear. Although the matter happened to the brake system, it definitely could not be a problem with the quality of the brake system. The sentence was enough. Zach did not need to know more. He looked at Luna again. Luna said, "All the car shops under our banner did not receive any feedback of the quality of this car. We also checked the maintenance of his car. The last maintenance was 5 days before the accident. According to the feedback from the employees of the car shop, the brakes of this car were checked on both sides. Because the apprentices checked first, we were worried and checked again. So they were very sure that the brake system was absolutely fine." After Luna sat down, Carson stood up again and said, "The inspection results of the appraisal department all showed that it was indeed a problem with the brake system. The brakes were broken and the gas leakage was the most direct cause of the accident. Originally, there was a faulty code for the brake oil on our platform, but because of the car accident, the internal apparatus was damaged. So we are unable to confirm whether the faulty brake light had been lit or not. We are unable to confirm this point." Zach lit a cigarette, sat on the chair, closed his eyes, and thought for a while. Walker guaranteed that there was no problem with the braking system of the car. Luna also checked the car store and found that the car had been serviced for the last time 5 days before the accident. At that time, there was no problem with the braking system. However, Carson said that the results of the appraisal system were the same. It was indeed a problem with the brake system. Zach believed that Walker and Luna would not lie. He also believed that the appraisal system also would not lie. Then there was only one possibility left. Neither of them lied. During those 5 days, someone had tampered with Harlow's car, and even the malfunction code had been tampered with, causing the malfunction code on the instrument to malfunction. This was because the car had been damaged after the accident, so there was naturally no way to verify it. However, there was no other way to verify this point. First, they had to get the car out and find the relevant experts to do the trace identification. The damage caused by the accident was naturally different from the man-made damage. At the very least, the braking system that had been tampered with would definitely have fingerprints on it. Even if the saboteur was wearing gloves, there would still be other traces. Finding those traces might not necessarily reveal the truth, but at least it would prove that their judgment was correct. However, just as Zach was about to give the order, Carson received a call. Then he said to Zach in surprise, "That car is missing! Missing!" Zach was not the only one who did not believe him. Even the people who were present at the scene did not believe him. The others also didn't believe it. The vehicle was demolished. So how could it disappear? Unless there was a big car carrying it out. However, they were in a parking lot of the department, surrounded by walls. If they wanted to go out, they needed security to let them in. How could they go missing? Could it be that the security was blind to the point that they couldn't even see a car carrying a car on its back? Moreover, there was an electric door at the entrance. Even if he was really blind, he should have pressed the remote control to let the electric door open, right? Carson had already arranged for people to investigate. If he was blind, he could only wait for the result. The car that caused the accident went missing in the parking lot of the department? That's true? Luna sneered, full of ridicule. Mac waved his hand. "If the matter has not been investigated clearly, let's not make wild guesses. There might be some other insider information." It was just that Mac couldn't tell what this insider information was. Surrounded by 4 walls, could it be that they flew out by plane? About half an hour later, Carson's phone rang. After picking up the phone, the person he had arranged told him that the police had already transferred the surveillance footage. It was not a vehicle that flew out, but it was more or less the same. It was a 16-ton crane with an 8-meter high arm, wingspan of 42 meters. It was parked outside the wall and hung up from the parking lot over the wall. The car that caused the accident was hung onto a heavy-duty truck and then pulled away. The police are investigating the surveillance along the way, but they haven't found any traces of the car yet. Carson's words made everyone present look at each other in dismay. He had tampered with the brake system, then waited for the appraisal system to come up with an appraisal result before taking the car away. This was clearly done on purpose. Moreover, his methods were not very clear. He kept revealing that he was deliberately going against the Dream Group. However, all of this was played on the surface, and there was nothing he could do about it. Moreover, the disappearance of the car that caused the accident had caused the QZ Group and the Dream Group be suspected to a certain extent. They stole the car that caused the accident. Were they going to destroy the evidence? They were openly plotting. They were very sinister. Zach extinguished the cigarette butt in the cylinder. It's useless no matter how much you think about it. I'll go over there and take a look. Luna wanted to follow him. Carson also wanted to follow her. Even Walker wanted to follow her. Zach waved his hand and said, "All of you just stay here. It's enough for me to go by myself. It's useless to have too many people." Luna said, "I have to go. I am the vice president of QZ Group. In many aspects, your Dream Group will not lack our cooperation." Mac nodded in agreement. "Director Marquez, let Director Luna go with you. Our QZ Group has a lot of car shops there. When we need a technician to do the appraisal, Director Luna will be there." What the two of them said made sense, so Zach did not say anything more. He called Luna and prepared to go on the road. When he sent Zach out, Carson seemed very apologetic. "I'm sorry, Director Marquez, I didn't handle this matter well enough. I also implicated you, causing you to run around everywhere. You didn't even have a chance to sleep." Zach smiled and waved his hand. "It's fine. This has nothing to do with you. You just need to take responsibility here." After comforting Carson, Zach and Luna got on the bus of QZ Group. Donnie was left to rest by Zach. After all, they had been driving for 7 or 8 hours. Anyone else would be tired. However, after Zach and Luna's car left, Donnie still drove after them. As the accompanying bodyguard, how could he let the boss go alone? After Donnie, the man and the GTR also drove the business car after them. The two of them muttered in the car, "I thought it would be great to be a boss. I didn't know the boss was so tired." The runner nodded in agreement to the words of the GTR. "That's right. We stayed up all night and didn't sleep, but at least we had nothing to do. Not only did the boss stay up all night and not sleep, but he also had a lot of free time in his brain. He was really tired. It's not easy to be a boss."